We're live, Cedric. You ready?
Yeah, no stuff.
All right. So this is our second one. Now we're talking about chapters 3 and 4 of Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler, Jamie Wheal. And chapter 3 talked about neurobiology, how the chemicals in our brain and how our body are all connected, and to get into flow, you need to use both. That was pretty cool. I thought it was a cool chapter. Chapter 4 talks about pharmacology, talks about drugs. Anyone who's really into that stuff is going to like when we talk about that. He went pretty in depth, I thought. He was talking a lot about how the drugs were made, how they impact you. I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool. So anyway, we'll get into it. Cedric, how you doing today, dude?
Oh, doing good. Another great day. Another great day. And good chapters, I'd say. What do you think overall of the chapters?
Dude, I thought they were awesome. I listened to them like twice. I mean, I
Yeah.
listen to them so when I'm driving to work, when I go into the office, I listen to it, but I don't take notes, right? But then I get to the office when I'm supposed to be working, then I write notes. Then I'll listen for the hour and I'll write notes. And it's twofold because one, I'm not working, which is great. And then two, it really sticks in, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've been thinking about maybe doing double listen or doing something a little different just to help with your attention. But me and myself, I thought it was really good. I thought it was it's definitely fun because the dude kind of it'll take like a very high level science approach to things, but then he'll also just be real about stuff and very honest, and so that I think is pretty fun.
No, we talked about that a little bit, right? I don't know if it was in the one where we recorded the audio, so last time, or the one where it was on our phones and we couldn't record it, but they get like really into it, right? They don't pull any punches. They were talking about, sex and how we're really just looking for dopamine, and how, the number one viewed site on the internet is Pornhub. And he just went
number 3, or something, right?
I don't know, probably, man, but still, that's a lot. And
Oh no, I'm sorry, that's a different fact that I have about Pornhub. So Pornhub is number 3 visited site worldwide. First thing. Second thing, right now Pornhub is getting they're not getting sued, but basically they're no longer hosting non-verified videos, which is basically what their business model was. They were essentially the YouTube but for porn. I mean, that's what Pornhub is, and Pornhub, I guess, now was. But they were losing a lot of backing from like Visa, MasterCard, like so they weren't able to process any pay. They're going to not be able to process payments for their premium services. And
all the credit cards, they were sponsoring them.
Well, they're not sponsoring them, but they do business with them.
Oh,
it's not like that's how you process payments. It's no different than anything else. Obviously, Visa and MasterCard, like they just went out such a long time ago to partner with all these companies, or companies go to them. It's just how you do it. But they were planning on actually separating from them because of them having potentially, iffy stuff on there. Not iffy from a standpoint of it being like child stuff, but just, they didn't know, well, was this revenge? Like, did she know it was being filmed? Like, stuff like
There's definitely some revenge stuff on there. You ever sit there and go, I said I know what happened to this relationship. I mean, I only watch church TV. I don't know what this whole Pornhub stuff we're talking about is. I don't watch any of that. If anyone.
Well, you shouldn't. It's bad for you.
It's bad. Dude, what are you drinking today? What's the whiskey of the day?
Oh, so today we have 1792 small batch, 46.85%. So like 97 proof.
Okay.
Something like that. But boom.
Ooh.
I like this one because it looks fancy. Like, you look at this. This is a fancy bottle.
It's almost gone.
Yeah, no, I've had this for months. That's my issue. Is what I'll do is I'll get down to like where it's like mostly finished. Because like for a couple weeks I was like drinking it fairly regularly, and it got it to like here, and I was like, well, I can't really drink it. So now every once in a while I drink it. It's not even like it's expensive. Like, I have the full proof of this, which is a little more, but still it's a $35, but it looks good. That's why I like it. If you want to look classy, you buy this.
Dude, whiskey bottles are cool. Have you tried the Woodinville yet?
No, I've been cheap.
Here, look, right here, dude. I got this from Total Wine and More. Dude, this is awesome. I use this in a concoction I found when I was up in Truckee, California. You mix 3 parts of this, 2 parts of mezcal, and then 1 part bourbon barrel aged maple syrup, which I got from Costco. And dude, it's good. When you make it right, it's like just sweet enough, but the mezcal makes it smoky. It's an awesome mix.
I'll have to give it a try.
But I do have some tea, so I can fit in with you. I wanted to wait till we were live before I did this. You see how it's Bob Ross, right? And he's painting, but everything's wrong, and that doesn't make sense because Bob Ross paints, great pictures. So you ready? Okay, so it's still black. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe we let it.
Is it hot water?
Yeah, no, it's hot water. Wow, that's embarrassing. I thought that was totally gonna work. Okay, well, we're gonna let it sit, and if something happens, then that's the magic of it. Otherwise, I'm gonna return this because that's not cool. That's false advertising.
See, so if you look at my bourbon, see if you pour it, see it paints a picture.
Yeah, that one works.
Yep, see.
Okay,
Bourbon.
so dude, let's get into these chapters. Okay, so what'd you think of that first one? The first one they were talking about neurobiology, right?
Oh, I thought it was good. I like the lady, right? That was doing like where it was like the hands on the hips and all like more of the kind of just power moves almost.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of that. Like I'm not a hands on the hip kind of guy. I usually just like spread my arms out wide, but I'm definitely a firm believer in that. I think that a little power stance or just some of that stuff worked into your day to day, I think improves your life a little bit. Makes you a little more confident, or at least kind of tricks your brain.
So power stance. What was he saying about that? What was he saying about that Wonder Woman pose?
Yeah, I was like the Wonder Woman pose.
What was he saying about it?
Oh, I mean, I'm not into the specifics, but I mean, basically what I got from is it just kind of puts you in like a better mood, a little more confident. That thing. So kind of like everything. It's like trying to trick your. I mean, everything's a little different, but this one was physically on like things, external things that you're doing that can kind of change your internal brain chemistry. So there was like he was talking about the like priest guy or whatever, right? Who was like having breed in like different ways or something, and then he was talking. Then I love the depression one. I'm a big believer when he was talking about depression and how it's like, really, if you want to solve depression, you could just run. Like if you just run every day, you're going to be less depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't necessarily say it like that, but.
And that's kind of what he was saying, right? Because he was saying that, especially in the Western world, he said, over in Asia, some of those countries, and way back when, I think it was the Taoists believed that you got to use your body along with using your mind, right? And that's why he was talking about the Buddhists and how, was it Buddhist? I don't know. They were talking about the monks and how they would like put themselves through those rigorous processes to break bricks and just do push-ups with just 2 fingers. And they were saying that in the Western world it's unfortunate because over here everyone just thinks with their minds. And by that, I mean, everyone thinks that every problem can be thought with just their mind. But what they don't do is they don't get their body involved in it, right? So, what did he say? He said, like, say you're studying for a test or something, or you have an interview. I think he was talking about an interview. He said, when you're studying for an interview, it's very stressful. He said, we don't usually, celebrate, get our body into it and celebrate. until after, we get the job.
After the interview.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, if you
Yeah.
use the body beforehand, then you're releasing those chemicals. He didn't really talk about the chemicals. That's what I would imagine. But he was just saying that there's that mind-body connection, right?
Yeah.
And that came up because he was talking about Botox, right, with Nicole Kidman.
Yep. Yeah. He was talking about Botox and how, what was it? It was that it made you less social, right? Like he wasn't saying it was necessarily you being depressed. It just made you like less social and less related because you were less emotional with your face. Which I could see. I mean, I could totally get behind that. Like, have you ever? I mean, I guess you don't really do stuff like this, but there's definitely times where almost like I'm trying to trick myself into like getting in a better mood or being like more on it. So it's like you like get a little smile. You try to like talk to people like with like a crazy wide grin. I guess we have masks now, so it doesn't matter as much. But just even that, like using that inflection will kind of trick yourself. All right, I'm a little more positive. All right, I was a little more salient.
So you'll like you said you put a smile on your face, not when you're happy.
Yeah.
You just do it kind of out of the blue.
Well, it's like if I maybe like, because sometimes like, I'm not down, but sometimes like I have to be on, like I have to be like in the mode and like on, and sometimes you're just not, like you're just kind of like doing your thing, like whatever, and you're just like, all right, it's in your mode, but you're not like crazy motivated and excited because there's some excitement you're trying to get. So it's like, yeah, it's like I'll sit there, smile for a second, like kind of think, get a little sway, a little shimmy, try to get myself going.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into that? What started that? Just kind of smiling out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, the smile thing's pretty common. They like because of sell stuff. So in sales, they a lot of times they'll put a mirror at your room. I mean, at your desk or wherever, and they literally will put the sign up that says "Smile on the phone," and you're literally supposed to look at yourself on the phone and smile. And I just kind of some expansions on that, and just other things I've learned from like myself when I've been in like harder situations. Like I think about like punishments in football and things like that. It's like my mindset was always just like, let's try to have a good time with it. It's like let's loosen up.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're still taking it seriously, but mentally, it's like, all right, like loosen up. It'll be fine.
So it's all about the mindset, is what you're saying.
Yeah, some of it. I mean, it's all just trying to get into a certain state.
But if you put a smile on your face, it's like you said earlier, you kind of trick yourself into being happy. If you're maybe sad or something, or you're shy, that might work. And it is interesting you said that. Yeah, that's exactly what they were talking about. Because with Nicole Kidman, she got the Botox, and she couldn't. They were talking about her eyebrows and how they were arched, but he was saying how there were those studies, right? You remember he was talking about the studies of people who got Botox. You remember those? And then they were talking about how, they find that the people who get the Botox, their depression is mostly alleviated, but also their ability to empathize with people decreases dramatically. And I thought it was real interesting because, he said that it's because when we empathize, we're mirroring the other person. So say someone's sad, right? If you're not able to frown by his logic, if what he's saying is correct, if you're not able to frown, then you won't be able to empathize and know how they're feeling. So with the Botox, that makes total sense. And if you're always smiling, I guess that'd make you happier. Maybe that'd help treat depression a little bit. Just putting a smile on your face, something simple like that. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, no, definitely. What are kind of your takeaways from that chapter? Some of the things that resonated with you.
Dude, there was a lot. There was a lot in this chapter. I thought the whole Botox. I thought the whole the body impacts the mind. I thought that was huge. Like, I'm happy you got me reading The Rise of Superman again, right? Because I read it before. And when I was doing it, I was just using my mind. I was like, oh, I'll get in this flow state, if I just meditate and I just think. And it was weird because I'd kind of get it, but then it'd like wear off really quick. And when it wore off, it's like I was super tired. There was no motivation to do anything. And it was like the opposite of what you wanted. But then he got me reading it again. And it said, hey, you know, you got to use your body. That's why these action adventure sports athletes, which he talked about in this book again, you know, because they use their body so much. You know, use that, you couple that with your mind, and you know, you have much better problem solving. And you know, that's why martial arts, balance training, yoga, um, those action adventure sports, stretching. What else did he say? You said working out, right? You said that earlier about the treadmill.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, just anything, just activity in general. Like when he was talking about the depression, it's just like, obviously, like you can, like, that's more of an extreme and more like pointed way to use it. But even just in the general sense, just a mild amount of activity can really just improve your mood or make your life better. And then expanding on that, like strategic and specific stuff can even more so improve your life.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's incredible how it seems so small, just to use your body, but I mean, it has such a huge impact on you. So that was cool, and that was a cool part about that first part of it. Then he was talking about the AI. You remember what was that AI's name? Her name was Ellie.
Oh, yeah, Ellie or whatever. Yeah, I thought the interesting fact was when he's saying that people are more comfortable talking to her. I was like, that's probably true.
What
Like,
do you thought?
especially some of those kind of dudes.
So more comfortable talking to her.
Yeah, because so it was specifically like people in the military that they were talking to,
Mhm.
and I mean every time I've not every time, but a lot of times I've talked to dudes in the military. I mean they like you know like sometimes they make it out like they don't see anything, and that like there's some guys that don't, but there's plenty of guys that do, and the ones that do, I mean it's like when you talk to them, I mean they're a little different. Like if someone you may have known for years, but you kind of get them talking about it, and you can just see this like change over. I mean everybody's a little different, but
Yeah.
it's definitely impacts you greatly. So I thought it was really good to proactively do it, and if it's something that guys are actually willing to open up with, then
Mhm.
it totally works. Because I think that most of the psychological stuff, I mean, obviously there's deeper psychology and other things you can do, but I
Yeah.
think just some of the basics. It's simple questions. It's just simply just you trying to work through your own stuff. It's not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. So you're talking about when they're trying to solve for PTSD, those guys in the army, because
Yeah.
they're mostly quiet and they don't talk about that stuff. So when you say,
Yeah, like I guess we're trying to sift through them. Like
yeah, when,
this is like at least how I heard it. It was more of a tool to figure out who has it, and if you actually have it, like get them actual help. But this was kind of like, all right, like get them talking some of the issues, some of the things. Hopefully, kind of prevent that, but then also find someone that is
yeah, and that's what Ellie
going
was,
through it.
the AI.
Yeah, at least that's how what I got from it.
Yeah. So what I thought was great about that was because that was exactly right, right. So the people, they found that they're more willing to tell the AI their deepest, darkest secrets, but a person, an actual human psychologist, they wouldn't do that for. And they thought that's strange, but the way Jamie Wheal and Stephen Kotler analyzed it is they put it kind of in the terms of the flow, right? Because what was the first part of their stir method? Selflessness, right? Selflessness. When you get in flow, you kind of step away from your ego, and
Yeah,
AI doesn't have an ego. It's just a computer, right? So it's not judging you. A person, regardless of how well trained they are, to be a psychologist, he said in the book, they're going to judge you, and
yeah,
even if they don't, you're going to think they do because they're a person. So, in a way, that's probably why they trust the AI more. And how that's incredible, and the reason they probably talked about it is because of selflessness, because it's basically saying that you're able to work through problems if you're not dealing with an ego. So if you're able to step out of
yeah,
your own ego, step out of your own self, then maybe it's possible to kind of, talk to yourself, be a therapist for yourself, and solve these
yep,
problems just by stepping away. That was
yeah.
my,
No, I mean yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's the same reason why, you can solve a million people's problems for them in 2 seconds and they can't see the answer themselves. Or he's talking about the jar thing or whatever, right? Like he's saying
So,
that,
oh
like you
yeah,
can't,
I like that. I
yeah,
like
it's like you
that.
can't read the label of a jar from inside.
Mm, you got to get on the outside.
Yeah,
I like
gotta
the
go on the
quotes
outside.
they put in there. I thought they were pretty good.
Huh?
I said I like the quotes that they put at the beginning and the end of the chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did too. And that was a good one. So moving on, what was the next chapter about?
Well, we're not done with that chapter yet, dude. There's still more.
What okay. What other points you want to talk about?
Hold on. I gotta look it up. So they were talking about uh, the botox, right? The connection between the body and
Yep.
the mind. Then they were talking about the artificial intelligence. Then they were talking
Yep.
about precognition. You remember that Minority Report? Have you seen that movie? I think
Oh yeah, nope. I remember he was talking about that. Yeah, and how they got everything out. I haven't actually seen Minority Report.
I think that's
I
the
remember that one's.
Tom Cruise.
I had to actually Google it because I was like, I'm curious what they're talking about. Like
Is
what
that
this movie
Tom
looks like.
Cruise?
It
Is that
looks good
the Tom
though.
Cruise movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Top Cruise movie.
Dude,
That's
this
good.
is like
Oh.
super depressing. I was looking at it. The mountains were coming up like a little bit. It was like really faint, but it's all black, dude, and I'm really not happy with this.
How hot was the water that you put in there?
Well, it was hot when I first got it, but I kind of left that there because I had to set up and I was going to pour it in, and I think by the time I poured it in, it cooled down like a lot. So, not that I'm going to ever take any personal blame because it's definitely not my fault. I think it was a cup.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
What does the cup
Yep,
say? It
cup's a piece
says,
of shit.
"We don't make mistakes," Cedric, and that's referring to me. I don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
but
you know
my
he was in the Navy?
huh?
That was his job, Bob Ross. He was like a Navy guy.
Um,
And then
yeah,
he got into painting.
he was in. I can't verify the Navy. I don't know which one it was, but if he was in one of the armed forces, and he was like a
Oh,
drill sergeant, right? So he's
yep.
always yawning at people. You gotta drink coffee, man. I see you yawning over there. I know it's like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock now, but
Yeah.
it's late, man. We got a lot to talk
Okay.
about. As you yawn again, we're gonna have to figure something out. Um, but what was I saying? Yeah, he was a drill sergeant, and then when he was done, he
Yeah.
went and started painting stuff. Like super calm, dude. I would always,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I like listening when I was in college. I'd listen to Bob Ross, like either when I wanted to chill after like football practice, or a long day at school, or what I always did, which was awesome, is if I ever brought a girl over, I'd put Bob Ross on. 100% success rate. It was awesome. They love it. People love Bob Ross, man.
It's for Bob Ross on.
Bob Ross is great. Well, because at first they're like, "Oh, what are you doing? Putting on Bob Ross?" I'm like, just wait, just wait, just watch. And he's like talking, "Oh, we got a happy little tree over here. Oh, and there's a happy little squirrel right here. Oh, and let's give him a little friend. Oh, oh, no, that's not a mistake. No, no, no. That's just we don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents." And it calms you down. And when it calms you down, then you're more open to expressing yourself and your thoughts and desires.
Advice from Matt. It's like you just
You
take
can
the
tell.
girls out, you show them a good time, a little Bob Ross, then a boop boop boop, one thing leads to another.
Cedric,
You
I'm
good.
only interested in knowing people's personalities. I'm only interested in, especially the more we've been reading, the more we've been learning. I'm more interested in learning about people and what people have going on inside, especially him talking about the ego, talking about the AI. That is what I like the most about this flow state. I don't know how much you've been working to get into it, but you know, if when you step out of things and you listen to people and they're talking about their issues, it's like you're so, you know, far from the point of, you know, conflict, because you stepped away from your own ego, you stepped away from your negative emotions, which mostly come from you taking offense to things and, you know, stuff that are related to your
Yeah.
identity. That it's better, it's easier to understand people. It's easier to understand why someone's having this issue, why this person's having this issue,
Yeah.
you know. But the biggest,
On the identity piece, I can't remember what book it was I was reading, but they made a really good point, and they were like things that hurt you, like things that really affect you and really piss you off, and all that, and like the cycle thought, like it might be a small thing, but for some reason you can't get out of your mind, you just keep cycling it. Those are things that hurt your ego, like it hurt that way that you identify with yourself. If someone goes up to me and like says like something that's negative but maybe I identify with, then I'm like whatever. Or if it's like just so out of boundary that it doesn't make sense. But if it's something that I truly believe and they are, you know, defying that, then and now I'm pissed. Then now it's affecting my ego. That's no, I am that, you know, and it's like all this and it's like for what? It's like who cares?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's
no,
like
that's
if it,
interesting. That's why you want to step out from yourself, man.
you know,
People take such offense to things. I think the biggest issue is, though, unfortunately, and it doesn't have to do with this flow thing, is that people don't like to listen, man. I mean, you can tell them the answer. You can say, "Hey, look, it sounds like this is the issue." And the crazy thing is, the closer you are to them, it seems like the harder it is to convince them of anything. Um, because I don't know, it's almost like either A, they hear you and they don't want to listen, or no, not you, Siri. I wasn't talking to you. Or B, they do hear you, but you know they think you're maybe insulting them somehow. I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know what goes on. All I know is it's definitely tied to the identity. And if you're able to step away from it
yeah,
and look at the logic, the logical situation, then everything makes more sense. You know.
yeah.
That's what's that saying we always say? Who was it who said the thing about the horse in the water?
Oh, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
You can't make him drink. Yeah.
Yeah, but remember, I told you the expansion on it though,
The expansion.
right? Yeah, so the other part of that quote,
Yeah.
well, I won't go into the whole story behind this, but to expand on that is the key is not to lead the horse to water. The key is to make the horse thirsty. That's what whenever I think about someone using that quote, then I'm always like, all right, you're not getting the point. If you lead a horse to water, it will not drink. But if you make a horse thirsty, it will find water and it will drink.
Hmm. So for this situation, Cedric, how would you make the horse thirsty? What are your thoughts?
On what situation in general?
Oh,
I
the one
mean,
I'm talking about. About, you know, you try to tell someone, hey, it sounds like this is the issue, but it's like they don't want to listen. Or if they do listen,
well, then you're making it important. So what you're saying is, so like let's say your issue is you're like let's say you're a deadbeat and you need to get a job, and that's your issue. Then to make you thirsty, I would be providing all these things that would make you want to get a job. I would be saying like, wow, like man, if you got a job, you only make $20 an hour, you can get that new car. Oh wow, you can go support your family. Dude, you wouldn't have to live at your grandma's place and like you don't even have to work like 20 hours a week. Oh, this, that, and the other thing. And it's like what I'm doing is making you think like, oh wow, man, I actually need this. This will actually make my life better. Oh wow. But if I go out and tell you that you need to get a job, then you're like, well, no, I don't need to get a fucking job. I'm fine just the way I am.
that's
But
true.
if I tell you all these great things about getting a job and all these things about money and all this stuff to make you want to get a job, then you go out and get a job.
So you're being indirect.
It's not about necessarily being indirect. Like in my mind, it's about having it be their decision, or at least having them feel like it's their decision.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. If you're not directly hitting it, then their defenses don't come up because they don't know what issue you're
Yep.
talking about. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I always try to remind myself. It's definitely like more of just a way to think about how to approach a problem.
Yeah.
Especially when you ever think that thought, you can lead them with water if they won't drink. That's when, whenever you think that, that's when you're like, all right, I'm doing this wrong. I
Yeah.
need to make them thirsty. Because it's not like you can't give someone the answer, they might not do it, because some people will. And that's definitely the right, easiest way to do it, and probably the first way you should start. But if that doesn't work, then all right, you need to figure out another way to make them want it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's tough, man. It sounds good on paper, right? It
Oh,
sounds.
it's absurdly difficult. It's not easy. The so the that expansion on the quote comes from a Robert Mugabe thing. So it's pretty. Huh? I didn't hear the last thing you said.
No, that's because it was unimportant to what you were saying. I stopped because I wanted to hear what you said.
Oh, I was saying, so the actual whole story behind that quote is basically Robert Mugabe helped liberate South Africa, that whole thing. And
You said
when he
rape.
was doing this, liberate.
Okay, so neither of those things I just said. Whoa! You drink some more.
Yeah. Yeah, so Robert Mugabe was going to liberate South
Cedric, you're cutting out, man. What's going on?
and
Cedric, hold on, pal. Uh-oh. What's going on here? That's not good. All right, well, you there? You back?
yeah,
Internet connection is
yeah.
unstable. My internet connection. That was me. It was probably me. It was 100% my fault. Um, yeah, so you cut out, man. So what were you saying? He liberated Africa.
Oh, yeah. Robert Mugabe liberated South Africa. And when he was doing this, it was basically there was like a bunch of warring feuds, and it was just a whole thing. And so he's sitting at the table with a bunch of these people that hate each other, and they're trying to have peace talks and try to work this all out. So then South Africa is one country, one government. It's like all set, none of this fighting. And he he gets out of this meeting. It was terrible. They damn near killed each other in the meeting. They were gonna basically start a civil war. It's horrible. And as he's walking out of the meeting, one of his advisors goes to him and he goes, "Robert, we lead a horse to water, but it will not drink." And he looks at his advisor and he says, "The key is not to lead the horse to water. The key is to make the horse thirsty." And and he used that thing to help bring them together and all that, and ended up freeing South Africa. But whenever, like, that's just one of the quotes I always like to think. It's like whenever you're trying to get someone to do it, it's like sometimes like you're looking left when you should really be looking right, and that's really what that tells you.
I guess so. Yeah, we're too narrow-minded, and it all comes back to flow. And it all comes back to stepping out of yourself, stepping out of your ego. And when you do that, not only are you looking left, but you're also looking right and up and down and left and all these other places. I already said left because you see everything in a way, metaphorically. You're able to see things clear, is what he's saying. So, anyway, that was that. Precognition. We didn't even get into the precognition. So, no.
Yeah, I feel like we should just go to the next chapter before it gets too late. You could totally cover precognition.
Okay, we'll do it quick. Because we don't want to keep people too long. I don't know how long this has been recording. But yeah, precognition, right? They were talking about that movie where these metahumans were able to, see the people who would commit crimes before they committed crimes. And they were talking about, I think they said that he sat in this hotel with all these people from DARPA and all these scientific minds so they could figure out what the future might be like from this book, the Minority Report book, because it wasn't described. So they sat there and they talked about it all. And they had all these incredibly accurate depictions of the future, like, what was it? Like the self-driving cars, precognition to tell how people act, and voice control refrigerators or something like that. Um, I think you froze. I think there's something wrong with my internet connection. You there? Hmm. All right. I think I'm gonna stop this and then I'm gonna try again. We're gonna pick it back up. All right. Okay, we're back on. Back recording. So, internet connection issues aside, what were you saying? Yeah, they were just, talking about the future and predicting the future. And what they found was that in this depiction of the future, they got it almost exactly right. But the thing they got wrong was they said that what the future would look like in 2054. But this is what it's like now in 2020 or 2018 when they wrote this book. So we've got 2 more years of, which is pretty incredible. So, and he was going off of how, with that being the fact, precognition, there are people who use precognition. And then they talked about the Navy guys, the submariners, and how they had to predict if someone would be able to handle living in the submarine. So they had that 16-week program where they go in the submarine and, they test them and they could tell which teams would make it in the submarines and which ones wouldn't, just through this 16-week program. And they'd know like 6 months before, they'd actually get into it, which is pretty incredible. And I think the way they did that is they were studying the body language, right? And they were talking about nonverbal cues because we talk about, what's on our mind and what we're thinking. But generally we have different thoughts that aren't, necessarily discussed when we're talking. There's a lot of these nonverbal cues that really, show what we're actually thinking. Did it freeze again? Dude. Oh, my internet.
Oh, you're back.
Stable? What the hell? Did I get cut off?
Yeah, there for a second.
All right. Well, we're back. I don't know if it recorded what I said, but yeah, just nonverbal cues.
Precognition, nonverbal cues. Like a homeless guy that can feel his, not homeless guy, a blind guy that can feel the ground through his stick, whatever it's called.
Oh yeah, he was talking about that because you step away from yourself and then you get to sense things, Mm. So anyway, then the last part, talk about neurotheology, and they were talking about spiritual, experiences. This was probably, I thought, the most important part because he was talking about spiritual, how people who are like, in very spiritual states, like people are meditating, the nuns, the Buddhists, and they say they're one with God or they're one with Buddhists. And this guy, Dr. Newberg, he studied with fMRI these people's brains, the nuns, the Buddhists, and they found that the parietal lobe, which I think is like right here in your brain, and it's supposed to like, be able to identify where you are in relation to other things. He said that kind of shuts down. When that shuts down, you feel one with everything, which is very powerful, very, very, very powerful feeling. What are your thoughts on that in that part of the chapter?
Well, I thought it was good. I mean, I think that's I mean, definitely from like reading some of these books, it's kind of a different way of almost thinking about religion. I mean, I definitely thought about religion from the stance of like community. They had the music. There's plenty of good reasons, but I mean, that's another good point too. It's just like getting into
Oh my God. Hold on, Cedric.
want to transition to the next chapter, or is there more? Because I feel like we covered most of it at this point. I can't remember if there was anything else we didn't touch on.
Yeah, no, this was the last part, neurotheology. By the way, we're back. We're back.
Okay.
I started recording again, so we're back in it.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, no,
Okay. Hopefully that's the last time we have to pause it because of internet connectivity issues. So Cedric, you were talking about religion. You were talking about your thoughts on religion because they were talking about spiritual experiences, and the guy was studying people's brains and how the parietal lobe shuts down during these experiences.
Yeah. So in the short, one of the things that I thought was interesting is how this kind of added another kind of, I don't know, benefit to religion. Like when I looked at religion, I always think community is a big one. Kind of just some of those other social benefits as far as like helping you out, like the singing, the lights, all that stuff is what brings people in. But then this is another aspect of it where, even the praying, maybe it's not for everybody, but for certain people really does make them feel make them get into that different mind state. Then they just then associate that with religion. They do it more and they're chasing that high. But I just thought it was a really different way of looking at it and just like adding another factor to religion.
Yeah, so it's an add-on, right? You're saying it's an add-on because in the very end of that last part, he said that, atheists say that, their argument is by knowing this, that really there is no religious experience, really, or there's no God, there's no divinity, whatever. Really, what's happening is your brain is sending out these chemicals, and you're getting in this state because of your brain, and it's really tricking you into thinking it's religious, but it's not, and that's their argument. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I would say teach his own. I don't think that if you're religious, that should really take any merit away from it. Because when it comes down to it, it's still, we're humans. So, like, there's chemical reactions to everything. And if you're truly religious, you shouldn't have chemical reactions somehow dispute your religious beliefs.
Yep.
Those can be, I would say, pretty mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
They don't, or however you put it. But, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what he said. He said the neurotheologists, they're kind of neutral because they say, well, all it really proves is that you get in this brain state when you're that religious and you're that in tune. And, whether that has anything to do with there being or not being a divinity, it doesn't really say. It just says this is what biologically happened. Okay, so you're going to be happy, Cedric, because that's the end of the chapter, to my knowledge. I'm going to check. I know you want to move.
No, I didn't care. I just thought we had already covered all of it.
You've really wanted to move forward with this one. Oh, there was another part. It was just saying that.
We can talk about it.
It was just saying that people were. They used the hammer example. They said, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And they were just saying that, if you're using a hammer, you're going to be able to hit a nail and you're going to be able to nail it in, but you're not going to be able to utilize that tool for anything else. And so
I think that's that's super true. Like you won't look for solutions outside of hitting it.
Yeah. You're just you're only looking for the one solution. So what are your thoughts on what he's trying to say there? What's the point of him bringing
No, I think the point is just isn't this what he's talking about, or I guess I think some of it's to kind of set up some of the stuff later on in the next chapter, but what is it? I don't disagree with that. If you only have, I think that's a very true statement.
Uh-oh.
You there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Your audio get cut out?
Okay.
Dude, this full of technical difficulties on this video.
Oh no, my headphones just died.
That's what I'm saying.
Can you
my
still hear me?
Wi-Fi's not working. Your earphones died. This is something else.
Well, they only last so long. They last a couple hours, but it's still, which is pretty impressive because they're pretty small.
They are, yeah. They look cool.
Oh. Yeah, no, they're so much. Remember, I was like, those things are $300. That's why I wear them all the time. Because if I wear them all the time, I amortize out that $300.
Yeah,
to a cost per hour. Yep, my goal is a cost per hour of $1.
Okay.
$1 per hour. If I'm getting $1 per hour, I would say that's a pretty good price.
Yeah, then you only have to wear it for 300 hours.
Yeah. Which if I keep it for maybe 100 days, if I have it for 100 days, I'd probably reach that.
Yeah. I bet you
Yeah,
could.
because I listen to like humanoid. Yeah. But oh yeah, so we were talking about that. But when I think about it, I literally think about like me myself and like some of the times I've like tried to fix stuff because I always love fixing stuff, love building stuff, and think it's kind of fun to use your brain for that.
Mhm.
And how I don't have any tools, or now I have way more tools, but there were times where I was like building. I remember I built a ramp and I had no tools. Like I had literally nothing. So it was just like the tools I did have, that was the only solution you had was that one tool. So you had to somehow keep whatever you're making inside that box that
Yeah.
revolved around using that one tool.
Yeah.
And as you get more tools and more stuff, then you can start doing way more, and there's way different solutions. And now that I've learned more about like building and how that would actually happen, I mean, you just look at it and they're like, well, there's 30 different ways you could do it. It just depends on what you have afforded to you and what makes the most sense based off that. But
So you're
going back to some of
limiting.
my earlier times, I only had one answer. Now I can see 30. So
So you're limiting yourself by only using one tool.
it's not that you necessarily, I mean, well, it's, there's that, but I also think it's like you limit your perspective on what can be done too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe he's saying that's the case too. When you only use one
Yeah.
tool and you're only using your mind, or, well, that's what my interpretation. I don't know what else he would be talking about, but if you're only using that one thing and you're not looking for other answers, then you're not going to find the other answers. But you
Yeah.
use the body, use more tools, and things suddenly become easier.
Yeah. No.
Okay, are you ready? You ready, Cedric? Chapter 4?
Yep. Oh yeah.
You gotta drink coffee, man. You gotta drink some coffee. We gotta be up. We either gotta start these earlier, like 6 o'clock. We either gotta start at 6 o'clock, Cedric, or you gotta drink coffee. One of the
Well,
two.
at 6 o'clock, I've only been off work for like an hour.
Yeah, me too.
I know. It's just so long. I
You
usually
can
like
read the
chill or like eat food.
book. It's tough being successful, Cedric. There's certain things we have to sacrifice.
No, well, it's not like I'm like sitting down. It's not like I'm sitting in my butt because I was listening to this. I just don't. I don't really listen to it during work
Yeah.
because a lot of times I'm talking to people. Like I'm like calling someone, so it's like, and I want to be a lot more there than I would be if I was doing that because it's like problem solving. I'm like sitting there like, how can I do this?
Yeah,
Like,
you're doing
how
two
will this
things
work?
at once, multitasking. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, that's why I
You
just
could
stopped doing that.
listen
And I
to,
also stopped listening to audiobooks when I drive.
you could listen to, you know, the day before, like yesterday.
No, I listened to some of it yesterday. I just finished it today.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
on to this chapter 6, pharmacology. So talking about, drugs and stuff that people can
Well,
take.
I stopped listening to it in the morning because I was retaining like shit. I was retaining literally like nothing when I would listen to it when I first woke up. I was retaining nothing, so that's why I stopped doing that. Because I felt bad because I was like, I'm really bringing like nothing to the table here. I'm like, I kind of remember what I was talking about, but it's just still so hazy.
Yeah, you want to make sure if you're talking about it, you know what they're talking about. That makes sense. Everyone appreciates that. So anyway, pharmacology, talking about, the things that people can take and how that's impacting everyone getting in this flow state, this ecstasy phenomenon that's happening, an explosion of people looking for this ecstasy. So what'd you think about the beginning, man, when he was talking about the dolphins? What were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was super cool. I was like, I did not know they did that. I mean, I've always been about like animals totally do drugs. I've always felt that.
What
But I
did
was
they
like,
do?
dolphin. I just think that's really cool that dolphins are like passing around a pufferfish. I just think that's hilarious.
So what
And if
exactly
anything,
happened?
huh?
What exactly happened for anyone who didn't read the book?
Oh, so yeah. So essentially, what happened is he opens the story and it's talking about these dolphins, and it's talking about these dolphins who are playing with a pufferfish. One dolphin goes over, grabs the pufferfish, picks it up, starts kind of biting on it, then throws it to another pufferfish. That one starts biting on it, and the pufferfish is poisonous and releasing a neurotoxin.
Yep.
And all of them get a little bit of the neurotoxin, not enough to kill them, and then from there, it looks like they're just like enjoying it. They're just like looking at their reflections, kind of having a different perspective and a different way of seeing their environment.
Yeah. And then he started talking about how cats do catnip, koalas ravage poppy fields, elephants drink or eat fermented fruits and break into breweries, goats eat magic mushrooms, cows eat some kind of grass. I don't remember what it was. So what does that say? All animals do drugs? All animals want to get high? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think about it?
Well, he said that all animals, what was the name of the guy who studied it? I don't know if I wrote it down here. I don't think I did. But, whoever studied all these animals, and they all got into drugs, they found that, well, what's the number one thing for a living being, for an animal to do? What's their driving function? It's to survive, right?
Yeah.
Animals want to survive.
Stay alive.
We want to survive. They want to survive. Every animal wants to stay alive. And so if that's the case, then why are they so driven to go to these drugs, which all these drugs, you look at what they can do to you. They intoxicate you. They were talking about how the monkeys, they'd leave their babies. They'd wander from the herd, probably get attacked. Some of the cows, they eat that grass, the weed grass, seed grass, I don't know what it was. And if it was poisonous, it'd kill them. Cats would have major brain damage from whatever the catnip. I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently. So all this stuff is really bad. And yet animals are still driven. Animals, including us, are still driven to these drugs. And so what was that? And he said, well, maybe it's the breaking down of the systems and breaking down of patterns, so we can understand complex problems a little easier.
Yeah.
And that's what I picked up from when he was talking about that animals are naturally seeking drugs, are naturally seeking things that get them out of themselves. And if that's the case, and we talked about why it is, because we want answers, and even animals have answers. The most interesting thing to me was that animals, if they're doing all this and they're looking for this pattern recognition, that means that they're just as cognizant as human beings are. Because if they're doing drugs, because he said human beings do them so that we're able to solve problems and we're able to step away from ourselves. So if that's what animals are doing, stepping away from themselves, they're cognizant. They know, what they are, and the difference between them and us, I don't know. Maybe it's not as big as people think. I don't know. That was a brain teaser for me. That kind of got my attention the most.
Yeah, no, I thought that, I like that point too, because it just kind of brings it more home. It's like, don't make this whole drug thing such a taboo. It's just like, all it is change your perspective a little bit. You feel a little silly for a couple hours. Maybe you get some good ideas out of it. It's like, and even if animals are searching for it and they're supposed to be such wholesome and amazing creatures, then why should we, not just embrace it as well, or at least like try to use it for some benefit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Animals are doing it. If a dolphin can ingest the neurotoxin from a pufferfish, why are people stopping other people from doing these drugs?
Yeah,
like
I'm a firm believer that that it is kind of dumb that people get mad at other people for doing drugs. Like, obviously, if it's adversely affecting your life, but if you just do like say heroin and you can somehow maintain your life and it's pure heroin, you'll probably be okay. Like, if you could somehow, even despite doing heroin all the time, keep up your life, then it's not really going to do anything besides you being intoxicated for that amount of time. Yeah, it's highly addictive. There's other downsides, but you can somehow still keep it afloat.
I'm going to argue that's probably. I would think that's.
You need to look into it, because it's not as bad for you physically as they make it out to be. A lot of these substances in pure form aren't bad because doesn't he talk about methamphetamine and stuff in this?
Oh, so physically, yeah. Well, I think he did. He talked about all kinds of drugs in this chapter.
Yeah, but yeah, so like when I think about it, like I'm solely talking from a physical standpoint. From a physical standpoint, most of them, if they're pure and you're not taking absurd doses, you can sustainably take it for a long period of time and not see really any adverse effect, or at least any adverse effect greater than any other commonly long-term taken.
But what about mentally?
That's what I was saying. It's like no one could keep it up. It's like someone might be able to keep it up for a year, maybe doing some really hard drug constantly and all that. Somebody just keep it a couple weeks, but they just can't. Eventually, that consumes you and that takes over, and that's a real problem. But it is funny that like it is illegal because the actual act of doing it once or doing it even in general is technically not hurting anybody. But it could hurt yourself just because it does get out of control, just because you can't control yourself. You can't just say, oh, I'll do it once, I'll do it on Tuesdays every once in a while, whatever. No, and then you start doing every day, multiple times a day. Then you do this, X, Y, Z, and then, it's your whole life.
Yeah. My thoughts are the biggest thing is you got to know your biggest weaknesses, because I think everyone's got an idealized version of something, an idealized version of how they're going to talk to people, idealized version of how they're going to, work with people, how they're going to act in certain situations, how their family should be, how politics should be, how the people representing them, et cetera, et cetera. I think everyone's got an idealized version of something, some kind of interaction with a person, animal, et cetera. But, the more I think about it, I think it's much better to realize that is going to get you in a lot of trouble. Thinking that anything is perfect, anything can be idealized like it is in your mind, that's only going to make you angry, because nothing's perfect, right? And so how it ties into what you're talking about, the heroin thing, if it's as addictive as it is, I haven't studied it all I know is, there are lots of people who are in the streets in Berkeley, who were in the streets of San Francisco when I was doing security out there, who were doing that stuff. And I talked to some of them when I'd be standing outside of a bar or something. They'd come up and they'd talk to me, and it's, things that or they say, and you can tell some of the things going on, man, and it's not good. And going off of what these guys were talking about, how you're not, don't just use one tool, don't just use your mind to solve problems. You got to use your body. I think it goes both ways. I think don't just use your body. Don't just see the negative impacts in terms of your body. You need to think in terms of negative impacts to your mind too. Because if your body is the vehicle, metaphorically, if it's a vehicle, if it's the car, and your mind, your ability to decision make is the driver. If you don't have a driver, the car is not going to go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it all. I definitely don't think there are definitely some drugs out there that, it's a little too much. And it goes back to what they were saying about you go beyond that pale, man, and you don't come back. I think that's one of those, you go beyond the pale, you do not come back without a lot of help.
I don't know. I would say it's probably just depends. They're all they're highly addictive. It's not that, but I would argue to say there's probably plenty of people that have taken it once and were like, yeah, this isn't for me. But it's also like a certain type of person does, like it almost like kind of gets you in that hole. That's the issue, is you start taking these drugs to make yourself feel better because your life is so bad.
Yep.
And because you're homeless, and then you start to depend on it, and then it's a cycle, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you get a lot of these people week one, if you get them week one of this, you probably pull them out. Like, you're probably going to be fine. It's week one. But you get them a year in, it's not fucking happening. So, I'm more just on the thing that I almost feel like some of the arresting people for drugs and all that's almost causing more harm than the drugs itself, or the money that we are spending on that could be better spent on trying to manage people who have problems with said drugs. Because, essentially, you spend so much money to arrest someone and file a case against them, get a jury, all this shit, when it's like, how expensive it is to just put the dude up in a place, try to get him clean, try to get him some sort of job that creates economic value so that he can start paying fucking taxes. And so,
Well, who knows about the money value, but what's more important to people than money? Is there anything more important than money?
time.
Time, right? Time's very important. And so what may not cost you, I don't know the dollar amount, but what may not cost you that much money and getting someone set up is going to be costing you a lot of time for one person. Then you look at,
And I'd still argue that it's probably more expensive to arrest them. It's very expensive to arrest someone.
well, that's why in San Francisco they don't arrest them. I mean, I think they act as they're like kind of therapists a little bit. They're like, you really want to do this? They don't arrest them. And it's not like the problem's getting any better in San Francisco or Berkeley for that matter. So,
Well, I'm
I
not
don't
saying
know,
it
man.
would. Like, to do this, it would be like a complete overhaul because,
Yeah,
it
big.
would literally require a complete overhaul with a whole bunch of upfront costs associated with it to get it down to zero. Because once you're at zero, then you can start minimizing the people that are getting on stuff.
Yep.
You need to knock out all the people that are already currently on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely one of those where it's like butterflies and rainbows, but it's not like we couldn't do it. If there was a real want and a desire for us to do that for our society, then we would. That's all that would happen. We went to the moon before cell phones. You couldn't send a text message.
That's true. We flew off planet before cell phones were a thing.
Yeah. Think about how crazy those people are, and then the people came back. They came back.
Talked about it. Well, it's all conspiracy theory. It was actually set up.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, so transferring, I guess, a little bit, it talks about, in the book, the guy who, I can't remember exactly what he got famous for, but basically he was, like, really into psychedelics. Like, that was his thing. He was really into...
Shulgin.
Yep, Shulgin, or whatever his name was. Huh?
The Berkeley guy. He was from Berkeley.
Yeah, so the Harvard guy.
Berkeley guy, yeah.
Yeah, so the Harvard guy. So this guy was from Harvard, and super smart kid. Ended up getting really into biology, pharmacology, and specifically psychedelics. And yeah, you can kind of go into some of the detail because I'm trying to remember. I obviously he like split up with the other guy. Then he made it out of his like house, and then he made like found a bunch of different stuff, and then his like letters came out, and he lost his Schedule 1 permit, and yeah, all the whole thing. But
yeah, all I got from it was that he created all these drugs. He was the first psychonaut. He said a psychonaut.
Okay, sweet. I was gonna say, I was like, I didn't really get too much from that besides that, just like his story.
They spent a lot of time on it, but I think it was more of a lead-in because that guy he created.
Yeah, I imagine it's developing.
Like 200, 300, new drugs. The guy said there were only like 60 of them, and then he created 200 to 300 more of them. And then he came out with those books, the Picol and Ticol, which pretty much said, hey, so this is the drug, these are the compounds, this is how you make it, and pretty much gave people a step-by-step way to make these drugs. And the DEA didn't like that.
I mean, that's fair. Fun drug fact for you. So the way the laws are written, they are literally outlawing molecules.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
so it's like THC. It's like tetrahydrochloride or something like that is what THC actually is. So if you take out all the molecules, the whole thing, THC is illegal. Now let's say we put one inert carbon on said THC, so not THCC or whatever. I'm not that good at organic chemistry. But it's now that is now a perfectly legal drug, even if it has the same exact effects. There's a massive market for selling research chemicals, which is basically what this guy did to people, because you can buy like what is it so LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide. Okay. You could get like a LSCA that has like some else in it that has like one different thing, and it's the same shit.
Doesn't that make it a little more dangerous?
So when he's talking about these 200 chemicals he's made, that's what they are. So when I've looked into it, you can have like mild differences, but like very mild. So like maybe one, they're like, oh, this one maybe lasts more like 8 hours opposed to 12. Or, oh, this one is a little bit more visuals than not visuals. because LSD is just the OG. That's just the first one. That it didn't mean that that was the best one. It was just the first one they found out, and from there they just kind of figure out some other stuff that works.
Yeah. So they were, yeah.
And you can never really bank on if you imported by it that it's 100%. It's just like you're relying on some chemist somewhere that really is supposed to know what they're doing.
Yeah. And I don't know. Do we trust that chemist? I don't know the guy. I don't trust anyone I don't know. I don't trust a lot of people I do know. I don't trust myself, Cedric. So do I trust that guy? Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I did like the 3D printing drugs thing. I thought that was funny because he's right. It's like they are basically like 5 different molecules put in different orders.
Yeah.
To make some drugs.
Cool. That's pretty cool. You just put in, I don't know how it worked. You put in the molecules and it just makes the drug for you. That way you got
something like that.
Pharmacy right there, 3D printer.
Well, they've 3D printed meat before, so you can make some crazy stuff with 3D printers.
Yeah. That's saying something, man. That is crazy. That's man on the moon stuff.
Oh no! I think that was really an interesting one because it'd be so cool. Like you just got a little machine in there, owned by like I don't know, Moderna or something. But you just press a button, boop boop boop. You get like your aspirin. You get like some cocaine.
Yeah, you're making all different kinds. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I trust people.
But I guess he also does differentiate psychedelics from the other ones because cocaine is bad drug.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, this one, they also talked about DMT and the DMT experiences because the first guy was studying Moses and Joseph. What was the guy's name? He started the Mormon religion. His name was Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith. And he said that he talked to the angel. The angel said, hey, use this lexicon, read this gold tablet. You're going to find out that actually there are this band of Israelites that came to America. And, this is a story. But anytime anyone asked, I can't. The angel, he took it back. He destroyed it. And something I hadn't thought about, but it's a very similar story that people give more credit to is, Moses. He went up, he wrote the 10 Commandments, and then he shattered the 10 Commandments.
I want to say he goes back up, though. At least as I remember the story. He goes back up and gets them again.
Did he?
I want to say that's the story. Because I remember doing this in religion class. And that was one of the things that made me a little less religious because I thought it was bullshit. I was like, if you can go up, get God's wisdom, come down, get pissed, break God's wisdom, and then just go back up there and get more God's wisdom, well, that sounds like some bullshit to me. Yeah, I want to say he goes back. I mean, at least that's how I remember the story. But I might be wrong. I'm not 100%, but I want to say that's how I remember it. Like he actually goes back and gets the stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not. I gotta read more of that. But if it is similar as discussed in the book, then in terms of because everything here they're talking about flow. We gotta start at 6. That's a fact. We are doing this at 6 o'clock now.
Well, it's really hard for me to do stuff at 6. I'm gonna have to take calls.
It's harder you doing it at 8, man. It's already 10 o'clock.
No, it's because I've been up. Yeah, that's because I woke up like early, like you do. I'm up since 5.
Yeah, I'm not yawning.
Yeah.
I gotcha. No. Yeah. So anyway, we'll wrap this up because it is getting pretty late. So they talked about DMT, talked about drugs, and pretty much just saying that drugs are kind of a quicker way to get to the flow state than meditating for so long or working on your flow triggers and all that stuff. So using these drugs, it gives people a greater perception of themselves. They makes them think that, there are really things going on that they don't see in their default mode in everyday life. And that's it, man. That's what I got. The biggest thing from that chapter.
Yep. Yeah, no, I also felt like it was a lead up one, definitely. It's like I think what's going to happen in the next one or next couple subsequent chapters.
Mm-hmm.
kind of expand on it a little more.
Technology. The next one's technology. I don't know what comes after that.
So
Okay. Well, anyway, dude, we'll call it. We'll read 2 more chapters. We'll reconvene on Friday. And
we can switch to like 7. I can probably do 7 pretty consistently.
7 be good. I think 7 be good. I just don't like, because that's a problem with doing these late, man. You do them at 8 o'clock. It's already 10 o'clock. We didn't start till 8:30. So
yeah, no, it was like,
maybe if we were
Yeah,
stronger willed individuals, we'd be able to do this and be excited about it. But we're human beings. And that's what we were talking about earlier. You got to understand we got our problems. And our fault is that when it's late and we've been working all day, you get tired. I get
yeah, no, definitely. But it's good because at least it keeps us both honest as far as staying on the book, and then also like talking about it, because I mean that's really where you get the value from it. Like it's all about just bringing in new information and trying to understand it. So I'd still say we're getting the value out of it.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm gonna stop the recording. It was a lot of fun talking to you, man. Again, we will reconvene on Friday. All right. Sweet. All right, dude.